I've been asked why it is that the Jewish people throughout history have had to suffer so much. Why have things been so tough? Why has there been such hardship? And of course the question is being framed in the light of what's happening at the moment and the terrible suffering that so many people are enduring and that we as a nation are enduring at this particular time. But the question goes beyond that and covers the whole of Jewish history. And there are two things that I shared with this person that I would like to share with you as well, two dimensions to trying to gain some perspective with this question. And that is the firstly, we should never allow the negativity of our hardship to in any way diminish the brilliance of our accomplishments. The first accomplishment is that we're still here, that we're surviving and thriving as a nation thousands of years after some of the attempts to wipe us out and annihilate us. There aren't any ancient Greeks, there aren't any ancient Romans, there aren't any ancient Egyptians, but we're still here. And not only are we still here, but look what we've given to the world. Look what we've done for the world. Look at the contributions we've made. Look at the Torah we've learned and taught. Look at the libraries of wisdom that we've produced as a nation. Look at the innovations. Look at Israel, modern day Israel. Look at the prosperity that we're blessed with. Yes, of course, there's poverty and hardship in every nation, but we also are blessed with enormous prosperity in North America, previously in Western Europe, and now even in Israel itself there's comfort and prosperity. Israel being rated as one of the happiest countries in the world. We must never allow the blessings that Hashem has bestowed upon us to be diminished in the slightest way by the fact that we've had to suffer in order to get where we are today. And we need to keep both of those in perspective. Yes, we've got to acknowledge the suffering, see the suffering, feel the suffering, and empathize with those who are suffering and recognize the suffering within ourselves, but we've also got to see it in light of the bigger picture, which is the kiyum of Klal Yisrael, the continued existence of the Jewish people, and the contribution and accomplishments that we have made as a nation. But there's a second element to it as well that I would like to share with you, and that is the difference between suffering and training. So, for example, I'm not born to be an athlete by any means. I don't enjoy it, and it's just not for me. I admire those who are, but it's not for me. For me, running is incredible suffering. I wouldn't do it if I didn't have to do it. There would be no way. And not only that, but I can't understand people who do run. Why would they subject themselves to such suffering? And yet when I speak to them, they love it, they enjoy it, they're committed to it, they're passionate about it, it makes them feel amazing. But to me, it's suffering. So what's the difference? Why is it suffering for me? And for them, it's just training. It's just how you frame it. It's the role that you see. It's what it's doing for you. If you see it as taking you to the next level, if you see it as a necessary step to be able to accomplish a goal you've set yourself, then it's training. If you don't see it that way, then it's punishment. And we need to understand that Yisurin, the suffering that Hashem gives us, is very often Yisurin Shel Ahava. Hashem is giving it to us not because He's punishing us because He hates us. He's giving it to us to refine us. He's giving it to us to train us, to develop certain muscles in us that couldn't possibly be developed any other way. I mentioned recently the comment of the Rav of Kovna that after the Second World War there would be a complete change in the status of the Jewish people. And look what happened. Would the Jewish people have had it within themselves to give their lives with such Mesirut Nefesh to establish a state, to establish Medinat Yisrael and the Eretz Yisrael that we have today? Would the nation have had it within them to do that if it wasn't for the tragedy of the Holocaust? And so not in any way diminishing the tragedy of the Holocaust, realizing that within that tragedy there was not only suffering and sadness, but there was also training and development, readying us for the next level. And so it is in the current period of terrible suffering that we've gone through as a nation, and more so the individuals and families that have been most directly hit by it. The people who suffered on October the 7th and their families, the Shvuyim, the people who were captured and taken into captivity, many of whom are still in captivity, what they must be going through and what their families are going through, those who've given their lives and the families of those who've given their lives, those who've been wounded and the families of those who've been wounded. So much hardship, so much suffering. We can't diminish that in any little way. We've got to acknowledge it, see it, feel it. And yet at the same time we need to realize this is not punishment. This is training and development, and we've seen it clearly over the last few months. We've seen how up till October the 7th we saw Israeli society at its lowest, destroying itself from within, imploding, tearing at one another, hating one another, resenting one another. And we asked ourselves at the time, how will this ever change? How will we get through this? And people were predicting the most terrible things for Israeli society and for the state of Israel. And comes October the 7th, and the hardship did what no prosperity could have done for us. It took us within hours from being the lowest of the low to being the nation of Israel at its greatest, at its best. In terms of Mesirut Nefesh, of willingness to sacrifice life and effort and energy and money, of the chesed, the kindness and the charity, the tzedakah that has been done, the caring for one another, the caring for the nation, the working for the nation, the putting others before oneself, the putting of a higher purpose and a higher ideal before anything else. All of this could not have happened, unfortunately, without the shocking suffering that we went through and that we are still going through. And so while, again, in no way do I want to diminish what is happening and what is happening, especially for the people at the front lines of it, and we're all just a hair's breadth away from tears. As much as we put on a face of optimism and excitement and belief in ourselves and in Hashem and in the Jewish people, which is all true, it's all authentic, yet just beneath the surface, when you begin to talk to somebody on a slightly deeper level, you find the person is ready to break down into tears. And that's not only the people on the front line, that's each and every one of us are feeling that stress and that hardship. But let's, while acknowledging the hardship and working with it and dealing with it, let's frame it and position it as training. Hashem developing the Jewish people for the next era of Jewish history, the next era of our development as a nation. An era where we will reach such levels of greatness that the nations of the world will look up to us. And after this terrible time of lack of clarity, this time of moral obscurity, this time of no understanding of what is true and false, what is good and bad, what is right and wrong, the world will look to the Jewish people to show what is right and what is wrong, what is good and what is bad, what is true and what is false. And that we will take our place as we are meant to be, as we are designed to be, as the Or Legoyim, as the shining light of clarity for the community of nations of the world.